The ground shook as another explosion rocked the battlefield. Sergeant Marcus Chen pressed his back against the broken wall and checked his medical supplies. The war on Zerion Prime had been going on for 3 months now, and the alien bugs just kept coming. Marcus was a combat medic with the human forces. His job was to patch up wounded soldiers and get them back to safety. It was not easy work, especially when the enemy shot acid that could melt through armor in seconds. The hive swarm was what everyone called the bug aliens. They looked like giant insects with sharp claws and acid sacs. They had taken over 12 planets already. The coalition of different alien species was trying to stop them here on Zerion Prime. Marcus heard heavy footsteps running toward his position. He looked around the corner and saw Thrakari warriors retreating. The Thrakari were big reptile-like aliens who stood 8 feet tall. They had thick scales, powerful muscles, and were some of the best fighters in the galaxy. But today, even they were running. "Fall back, shouted a Thrakari commander in broken human language. His translator device was damaged, making his words sound choppy. Marcus grabbed his medical bag and prepared to move. That was when he heard the roar. It was not a human sound or even a normal Thrakari sound. It was the battle cry of Zethkar, the most famous warrior in the coalition forces. Every soldier knew that name. Zethkar had won more battles than any other fighter. He had killed a hive queen with his bare hands. Stories about him spread through every military base. Marcus looked toward the sound and saw something that made his blood run cold. Zethkar was fighting alone against a group of hive soldiers. The big Thrakari warrior moved like a deadly dance, his energy sword cutting through enemies. But there were too many of them. More Thrakari warriors ran past Marcus, not even looking back at their greatest hero. Marcus could not understand it. Why were they leaving Zethkar behind? Then Marcus saw the acid spitter. It was a special type of hive bug that could shoot streams of burning acid from long distance. The creature aimed at Zethkar while the warrior was busy fighting other enemies. "Look out," Marcus shouted, but it was too late. The acid hit Zethkar in the back. The warrior's armor held for a moment, then began to melt. Zethkar screamed in pain and fell to the ground. The acid kept burning through his armor and into his body. Marcus watched in horror as Zethkar tried to stand up. The great warrior pulled himself up with his arms, but his legs would not move. The acid had damaged his spine. Zethkar was paralyzed. The hive bugs moved closer to finish off the fallen warrior. Marcus saw Zethkar reach for his sword, but he could not reach it. The weapon had fallen too far away. "Help him!" Marcus yelled at the retreating Thrakari soldiers. "Your best warrior needs help." One of the Thrakari commanders stopped and looked back. He saw Zethkar on the ground, unable to move his legs. The commander's face showed no emotion. "He cannot fight," the commander said in his broken English. "Zethkar is weak now. We do not help the weak." Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. "But he is your friend, your brother in arms." The commander shook his head. "No more. Zethkar cannot walk, cannot fight. He brings shame to our people. Better he dies with honor than lives with shame." The other Thrakari nodded in agreement. They turned and continued running away from the battlefield. They left their greatest hero to die alone. Marcus looked at Zethkar again. The hive bugs were almost on top of him. The warrior was trying to crawl away, pulling himself forward with his powerful arms. But he was not fast enough. Other coalition soldiers ran past Marcus. The ethereal lumina floated by like glowing ghosts, their energy forms shimmering. They did not even look at Zethkar. The militant Corvin marched past in their heavy armor, their insect-like faces showing no concern. Even the crystalline Vex rolled by on their wheel-like bases, their crystal bodies making musical sounds as they moved. None of them stopped to help. Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He grabbed his medical bag and ran toward Zethkar. "Medic going in," he shouted into his radio. "Cover me." His squad leader's voice crackled back. "Chen, what are you doing? We have orders to retreat." "Can't leave him behind, sir," Marcus replied, ducking under a blast of acid. Marcus reached Zethkar just as the first hive bug raised its claws to strike. Marcus pulled out his sidearm, and shot the creature in the head. It fell backward. Green. Blood spraying everywhere. Zethkar looked up at Marcus with yellow eyes full of pain and anger. "Human," he said in perfect English. His translator was still working. "Why are you here? I am nothing now." "You are not nothing," Marcus said, grabbing Zethkar under the arms. "You are hurt, and I am a medic. My job is to help hurt people." Marcus tried to lift Zethkar, but the Thrakari was too heavy. Zethkar weighed almost 400 pounds of solid muscle and bone. Marcus was strong for a human, but not that strong. "Leave me," Zethkar said. "I cannot walk, I cannot fight, I am useless to your war." "Shut up and help me help you," Marcus said. He activated his emergency beacon. "This is Sergeant Chen. I need immediate extraction. I have a wounded VIP." More hive bugs were coming. Marcus could hear their chittering getting closer. He pulled out 2 grenades and threw them at the approaching enemies. The explosions bought him a few more seconds. Zethkar grabbed Marcus's arm with one massive hand. "You do not understand, human. In my culture, the weak must die. It is our way. I cannot be what I was before." "Then be something new," Marcus said. He had an idea. He activated his personal shield generator and placed it over both of them. The energy barrier would protect them for a few minutes. Marcus got on his radio again. "This is Sergeant Chen. I am not leaving without the Thrakari warrior. Send a heavy lifter." "Chen, you are disobeying direct orders," came the reply. "Yes, sir, I am," Marcus said calmly. "Court-martial me later. Right now, send the lifter." Marcus looked down at Zethkar. The warrior's eyes were getting dim from pain and blood loss. Marcus pulled out his medical scanner and checked Zethkar's injuries. The acid had burned through several vertebrae in his spine. The damage was severe but not fatal. "I can fix some of this," Marcus said, pulling out emergency medical supplies. "You will live." "I do not want to live like this," Zethkar whispered. "That is not your choice right now," Marcus replied, injecting pain medication into Zethkar's neck. "Right now, your choice is to trust me or die. What will it be?" Zethkar looked into Marcus's eyes. He saw something there that he had never seen in his own people's eyes when they looked at the weak or injured. He saw determination, compassion, and stubbornness. "Why?" Zethkar asked. "Because everyone deserves a chance to find a new way to be strong," Marcus said. The sound of human aircraft filled the air. The heavy lifter was coming. Marcus smiled and kept working on Zethkar's wounds. He had made his choice, and he was going to stick with it. Even if it meant going against every other species in the coalition, Marcus was not going to abandon someone who needed help. That was just not the human way. The human medical tent was not built for someone like Zethkar. The Thrakari warrior was too big for the normal beds, so the doctors had to push 3 tables together. His tail hung off the end, and his horned head barely fit under the ceiling. Marcus sat in a chair next to the makeshift bed, reading reports on his datapad. It had been 2 days since he rescued Zethkar from the battlefield. The warrior had not spoken much since waking up. Dr. Sarah Kim walked over with a medical scanner in her hands. She was the chief medical officer for the human forces on Zerion Prime. She looked tired. All the doctors looked tired these days. "How is he doing?" Marcus asked quietly. "Physically, he is stable," Dr. Kim replied. "The acid burns are healing, and we stopped the infection. But the spinal damage is permanent. He will never walk again." Marcus nodded. He had expected that news, but it still hit him hard. "What about mentally?" Dr. Kim looked at Zethkar's sleeping form. "That is harder to fix. He has been asking for a weapon every time he wakes up. He wants to end his own life." "We cannot let him do that," Marcus said. "I know. But we cannot watch him forever. And honestly, Marcus, I do not know if keeping him alive is the right thing to do. His own people have disowned him. The other alien species will not work with him. What kind of life can he have now?" Marcus did not have a good answer for that question. He looked at Zethkar and tried to imagine what the warrior was feeling. To go from being the most respected fighter in the galaxy to being unable to move his legs must be devastating. Zethkar's yellow eyes opened. He looked around the tent and saw Marcus sitting nearby. "You are still here," Zethkar said. His voice was flat and emotionless. "Where else would I be?" Marcus replied. "Doing your job. Fighting the war. Not wasting time on a broken warrior." Marcus pulled his chair closer to the bed. "You are my job right now. I am a medic. My job is to take care of injured soldiers." Zethkar turned his head to look directly at Marcus. "I am not a soldier anymore. I am nothing. In Thrakari culture, warriors who cannot fight are considered dead. My own people will not speak my name." "Then maybe your culture is wrong about some things," Marcus said. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Zethkar's eyes flashed with anger. "You know nothing about my people, human. We have survived for thousands of years by being strong. The weak drag down the strong. That is why we must eliminate weakness wherever we find it." "Even in yourselves?" Marcus asked. "Especially in ourselves," Zethkar replied. "I was weak enough to let an acid spitter hit me. I deserve this fate." Marcus stood up and walked to a storage container. He pulled out a strange wheeled chair and rolled it over to the bed. "What is that?" Zethkar asked. "It is called a wheelchair," Marcus explained. "Humans use them when their legs do not work." Zethkar stared at the device with disgust. "You keep your weak ones alive? You give them machines to move around?" "We do," Marcus said. "And some of those weak ones become our strongest people." "That makes no sense." Marcus sat back down. "Let me tell you about a human named Stephen Hawking. He had a disease that slowly paralyzed his entire body. He could not walk, could not move his arms, could barely speak. By your culture's standards, he should have been left to die." Zethkar listened despite himself. But Hawking became one of the greatest scientists in human history. He discovered things about the universe that changed how we understand reality. He did it all from a wheelchair, using a computer to speak for him. "One example does not prove anything," Zethkar said, but he sounded less certain. "How about Franklin Roosevelt? He was paralyzed from the waist down just like you. He became the leader of the entire human race during our greatest war. He led us to victory against enemies who thought they were stronger than us." Marcus could see Zethkar thinking about this. The warrior's culture had never given him examples of disabled people doing great things. "Your species is different," Zethkar said finally. "Humans are already weak compared to most aliens. You have no choice but to accept weakness." "Maybe," Marcus said. "Or maybe we understand something your people do not." "What is that?" "True. Strength is not about how hard you can hit or how fast you can run. True strength is about never giving up, no matter what happens to you." Dr. Kim brought them food an hour later. She had managed to find some Thrakari rations for Zethkar. The warrior ate slowly, still getting used to eating while lying flat. "The other species are asking questions," Dr. Kim told Marcus quietly. "They want to know why we are wasting resources on him." "What did you tell them?" "I told them it was a human decision and they could mind their own business," Dr. Kim said with a small smile. Marcus heard other soldiers talking outside the tent. Word was spreading through the human camp about the Thrakari warrior they had rescued. Some soldiers thought Marcus was crazy. Others admired what he had done. Corporal Lisa Park stuck her head into the tent. "Sergeant Chen, Colonel wants to see you." Marcus sighed. He had been expecting this. "Watch him for me," he told Dr. Kim. The command tent was busy with activity. Officers from different species were arguing about battle plans. Colonel Rodriguez, the human commander, saw Marcus enter and waved him over to a quiet corner. "Sergeant, I have been getting complaints about your passenger," the colonel said. "What kind of complaints, sir?" "The Thrakari want us to hand him over so they can perform some kind of death ritual. The Lumina think we are being cruel by keeping him alive against his wishes. The Corvins say we are violating military protocol." Marcus stood straighter. "And what do you think, sir?" Colonel Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. "I think you did what you thought was right. But I also think you have created a problem for all of us. Sir, If helping someone is a problem, then maybe we need better problems. The colonel almost smiled. That is a very human way to look at it, Sergeant, but we are part of a coalition. We cannot ignore our allies completely. Are you ordering me to abandon him, sir? No, the colonel said firmly. I am ordering you to find a solution. Figure out how to make this work, or I will have to let the other species handle it their way. Marcus saluted. Yes, sir. I will find a solution. When Marcus returned to the medical tent, he found Zethkar staring at the ceiling. The warrior looked even more depressed than before. I heard your officers talking, Zethkar said. I am causing problems for your people. You let me worry about that, Marcus replied. Why do you care so much about what happens to me? Zethkar asked. You barely know me. I am not even your species. Marcus thought about how to answer that question. When I was a kid, I broke my leg badly. The doctors said I might never walk normally again. My friends stopped coming around. They said I was not fun anymore because I could not play sports. Zethkar listened intently. But my father never gave up on me. He helped me learn to walk again. He taught me that being strong was not about what my body could do. It was about what my mind and heart could do. And now you walk normally? Yes, but that is not the point. The point is that someone believed in me when I could not believe in myself. Someone refused to abandon me. That changed everything. Zethkar was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Show me how this wheelchair works. 3 weeks had passed since Zethkar first tried the wheelchair. The human engineers had worked day and night to build a special version for his massive frame. Now the Thrakari warrior could move around the base, though he still stayed mostly in the medical area. Marcus found him in the recreation tent watching human soldiers play cards. The other humans had been curious about Zethkar at first, but now they treated him like any other wounded soldier. They brought him food, included him in conversations, and asked his opinions about military tactics. The Corvin do not understand bluffing, Zethkar told Private Johnson, who was explaining poker rules. They always show their emotions on their faces. Yeah, that is why they are terrible at cards, Johnson laughed. But you picked it up pretty fast for someone who never played before. Marcus smiled. It was good to see Zethkar interacting with other people. The warrior was still depressed about his condition, but he was starting to engage with the world. Again. Marcus, Dr. Kim called from across the tent. Emergency briefing, all senior staff to the command center immediately. Marcus looked at Zethkar. Want to come listen? You might find it interesting. Zethkar considered this. He had not been to any military briefing since his injury. Your officers will not mind? Only one way to find out. The command center was packed with officers from all the coalition species. Marcus wheeled Zethkar to a spot near the back where they could see the main display screen. Colonel Rodriguez stood at the front of the room next to a holographic map. His face was grim. Intelligence has discovered a new threat, the colonel announced. The Hive has built a superweapon inside an ancient underground complex 50 kilometers from here. The display showed a cross-section view of a massive structure built into a mountain. It looked like a combination of organic Hive technology and much older alien architecture. This weapon can destroy entire fleets from orbit, Rodriguez continued. If the Hive activates it, we will lose control of this entire system. A Thrakari general stood up. Then we attack immediately with all forces, overwhelm them before they can use the weapon. It is not that simple, replied the Lumina representative, her glowing form pulsing with concern. The complex is heavily defended. A direct assault would be suicide. The Corvin military leader clicked his mandibles together and thought. What about orbital bombardment? Destroy the entire mountain. The weapon is too deep underground, Rodriguez explained. We would need ground forces to penetrate the complex and plant charges at the weapon's core. Marcus studied the holographic map carefully. The complex was a maze of narrow tunnels and vertical shafts. It would be extremely difficult for normal troops to navigate. The passages are too small for heavy armor, noted the Vex representative, her crystal body chiming softly. And the organic walls will be toxic to most species. We need volunteers for a suicide mission, the Thrakari general declared. Warriors, who are willing to die for the cause. Marcus felt Zethkar shift beside him. The wounded warrior was studying the map intently, his yellow eyes moving over every detail. "I know this place," Zethkar said quietly. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. The Thrakari general's face showed disgust at seeing his former champion in a wheelchair. "What did you say?" Colonel Rodriguez asked. Zethkar rolled his wheelchair forward slightly. "I said I know this place. I have been inside that complex before." "Impossible," the Thrakari general snapped. "That area has been under Hive control for months, not the whole complex." Zethkar replied calmly. 3 years ago, I led a reconnaissance mission into the upper levels, before the Hive found it. The ancient builders designed it as a fortress, but not for creatures like us." Marcus could see the other officers becoming interested despite themselves. "Explain," Rodriguez ordered. Zethkar looked at the holographic display. The original inhabitants were much smaller than modern species. The tunnels are narrow, the ceilings are low, and there are many vertical passages that require climbing. Equipment. A normal military force would be trapped and slaughtered. "Then how do you propose we attack it?" asked the Lumina representative. Zethkar was quiet for a moment. Marcus could see him thinking, planning, calculating odds the way he used to before major battles. "Not attack," Zethkar said finally. "Infiltrate. A small team that can move through spaces too narrow for Hive defenders. Use the fortress design against them." "And how exactly would this team move through narrow tunnels?" the Corvin leader asked skeptically. Zethkar looked down at his wheelchair, then back at the map. "With the right equipment, someone in my condition could navigate those passages better than a walking soldier. Lower profile, better stability, specialized mobility gear." The room erupted in arguments. The Thrakari general was shouting about dishonor and impossible plans. The other species were debating whether to take Zethkar's suggestions seriously. Marcus stood up. "Colonel, permission to speak?" Rodriguez nodded. "Zethkar knows more about Hive tactics than anyone in this room," Marcus said. "He has studied their behavior for years. If he says this plan could work, maybe we should listen." "He cannot even walk," the Thrakari general protested. "How can a broken warrior lead a mission?" "He would not be leading the mission," Marcus replied. "I would be. He would be the tactical advisor." Now everyone was staring at Marcus. The suggestion that a human medic would lead a critical mission seemed insane to most of the aliens. "You have no command experience," the Corvin leader pointed out. "No, but I have something else," Marcus said. "I have experience working with Zethkar. We make a good team." Zethkar looked at Marcus with surprise. "You would volunteer for this mission, even though it is almost certainly a death sentence?" "Someone has to stop that weapon," Marcus replied. "Might as well be us." Colonel Rodriguez studied both of them carefully. "What would you need?" Zethkar rolled closer to the holographic display. "A small team, no more than 6 people. Humans would be best. You are the right size for the tunnels, and your technology is most adaptable." "What kind of technology?" Dr. Kim asked. "Specialized mobility equipment for me, climbing gear for the team, silent weapons, and most importantly, a way to carry enough explosives to destroy the weapon core." The Thrakari general laughed bitterly. "This is madness. You want to trust the fate of the entire war to a crippled warrior and a human medic?" Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, but Zethkar spoke before he could respond. "General Kravex," Zethkar said formally, using the Thrakari's full name and title. "Do you have a better plan?" The general's face turned darker. "We attack with honor. Full assault no matter the cost." "And how many warriors will die in your honorable assault?" Zethkar asked. "How many Thrakari mothers will lose their sons for your pride?" The question hung in the air. Everyone knew that a direct assault would be a massacre. Colonel Rodriguez made his decision. "We will try both approaches. General Kravex, prepare your assault force as a backup plan. Sergeant Chen, you have 24 hours to put together your infiltration team." As the meeting broke up, officers from different species clustered together, arguing about the wisdom of the plan. Marcus noticed that several humans approached him privately, volunteering for the mission. "You do not have to do this," Zethkar told Marcus as they left the command center. "Yes, I do," Marcus replied. "This is bigger than just proving you can still contribute. If we can save lives by trying something different, then we have to try." Zethkar was quiet for a moment. "In my culture, warriors who cannot fight are supposed to die with dignity, but maybe there are different ways to fight." "Now you are getting it," Marcus said with a smile. "There is one problem," Zethkar added. "If we succeed, my people will have to admit that a disabled warrior accomplished what their best fighters could not. That will challenge everything they believe." "Good," Marcus said firmly. "Some beliefs need to be challenged." That night, Marcus worked with the human engineers to design special equipment for the mission. They modified Zethkar's wheelchair with climbing attachments, silent motors, and weapon mounts. They created harnesses and ropes for vertical movement through the complex. Zethkar spent the time studying intelligence reports and drawing detailed maps of the complex's interior. His memory of the 3-year-old reconnaissance mission was perfect, and he knew exactly how to navigate the maze of tunnels. "The irony is not lost on me," Zethkar told Marcus as they worked. "I spent my whole life trying to be the perfect Thrakari warrior. Now I might accomplish my greatest victory by admitting that I am not that warrior anymore." "Maybe being a perfect Thrakari warrior was never the point," Marcus suggested. "Maybe the point was just being the best version of yourself." Zethkar considered this. "Your species has a very different way of looking at strength and weakness." "Yeah, we do. And tomorrow, we get to show everyone else that our way might just work." The entrance to the underground complex was hidden behind a waterfall. Marcus and his team rappelled down the cliff face in the pre-dawn darkness, their equipment packed in silent containers. The sound of falling water covered any noise they made. Marcus had chosen his team carefully. Besides himself and Zethkar, there was Corporal Lisa Park, an explosives expert, Private Tommy Rodriguez, a communications specialist, Sergeant Janet Wilson, a sniper and reconnaissance expert, and surprisingly, Dr. Sarah Kim, who had volunteered when they needed someone with medical and technical skills. "Remember," Zethkar whispered into their comm system as they reached the cave entrance. "The hive creatures sleep during the day cycle, but they have sentries. Move quietly and stay together." The cave mouth was larger than expected, carved from black stone by some ancient civilization. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly with their own light. The air smelled of metal and something organic that made their noses burn. Marcus helped Zethkar transition from his climbing gear to his modified wheelchair. The human engineers had outdone themselves. The wheelchair could fold into different configurations: a low-profile crawler for tight spaces, a climbing rig for vertical sections, and a stable platform for combat. "Bio readings show massive organic structures ahead," Dr. Kim reported, checking her scanner. "The hive has grown their technology into the original architecture." They moved deeper into the complex. The tunnels were exactly as Zethkar had described. Narrow passages built for creatures much smaller than modern species. A normal soldier would have to crawl through most areas, but Zethkar's wheelchair configuration allowed him to move efficiently. "Turn left at the next junction," Zethkar directed. "There should be a vertical shaft about 50 meters ahead." They found the shaft exactly where he said it would be. Looking up, Marcus could see it disappeared into darkness above them. Organic hive material had grown along the walls like veins, pulsing with a faint green light. "This will take us to the middle levels," Zethkar explained. "From there we can access the weapon chamber." Marcus attached climbing cables to Zethkar's wheelchair and began the ascent. The modified chair had gecko-like grips that could stick to any surface, allowing Zethkar to climb walls like a spider. They climbed for 20 minutes before reaching the next level. The tunnels here were different, wider and more organic. The hive had clearly been using this area more heavily. "Contact," Sergeant Wilson whispered. 3 guards ahead, blocking the main passage. Marcus peered around the corner and saw 3 hive soldiers standing in front of a large doorway. They were different from the battlefield drones, bigger with more armor and better weapons. "I can take them with my rifle," Wilson offered. Too noisy, Zethkar said. The sound will alert the entire complex. Then how do we get past them? Corporal Park asked. Zethkar studied the layout carefully. There is a maintenance tunnel above them. Too small for normal soldiers, but I can fit through it in crawler mode. That is too dangerous, Marcus protested. If they see you, you will be trapped. Not if you create a distraction, Zethkar replied. Give me 2 minutes to get into position, then make some noise down the left corridor. When they go to investigate, I drop down behind them. Marcus did not like the plan, but they were running out of time. The main assault force would begin their attack in 6 hours, and they needed to be in position by then. Zethkar folded his wheelchair into crawler configuration and disappeared into a narrow opening above the guards. Marcus watched him move through the transparent sections of the maintenance tunnel. The big warrior looked strange crawling through such a small space, but he moved with surprising grace. 2 minutes later, Marcus threw a small rock down the left corridor. The sound echoed off the walls, and all 3 guards immediately moved to investigate. Zethkar dropped from the ceiling behind them. His wheelchair had transformed back into combat mode, and plasma weapons emerged from hidden compartments. 3 silent shots later, the guards were down. Clear, Zethkar reported. They moved through the doorway and found themselves in a vast chamber filled with hive biotechnology. Organic computers lined the walls, pulsing with data streams. In the center of the room, a massive structure grew from floor to ceiling like a twisted tree. The weapon core, Dr. Kim breathed. It is beautiful and horrible at the same time. It is also heavily shielded, Corporal Park noted, running her scanner over the structure. I will need to place charges at multiple points to ensure complete destruction. They worked quickly to set the explosives. The biotechnology around them hummed with power, and Marcus could feel vibrations through the floor. The weapon was charging for another shot at the Coalition fleet. Incoming transmission, Private Rodriguez reported. It is Colonel Rodriguez. Chen, what is your status? The colonel's voice crackled through the comm. We are at the target, sir. Setting charges now. Good. Be advised. The Hive has detected our assault force. They are activating their defenses early. You have maybe 30 minutes before this place becomes hell on earth. Marcus looked at Corporal Park. How long do you need? At least 40 minutes to do this properly, she replied. Then we work faster, Zethkar said simply. They spread out around the weapon core, each team member handling a different section. The organic structure seemed to sense their presence, and defensive systems began to activate. Smaller hive creatures emerged from hidden alcoves, moving to protect the weapon. We have company, Sergeant Wilson called out, shooting one of the creatures as it charged toward Dr. Kim. More creatures poured into the chamber. They were not the mindless drones from the battlefield. These were intelligent defenders coordinating their attacks and using the chamber's layout to their advantage. Marcus found himself back-to-back with Zethkar, both of them firing at enemies, coming from multiple directions. The wheelchair's weapon systems were surprisingly effective, but they were quickly becoming outnumbered. Charges are set on the north side, Park reported over the gunfire. South side complete, Dr. Kim added. Marcus realized they had a problem. The east side of the weapon core was behind a wall of hive defenders. Someone would have to get through them to place the final charges. I can reach it, Zethkar said, reading Marcus's mind. Too dangerous. There are too many of them. Not for a frontal assault, Zethkar agreed, but I am not planning a frontal assault. Before Marcus could stop him, Zethkar activated his wheelchair's climbing mode and began scaling the chamber wall. The hive creatures were focused on the humans on the ground level and did not notice him moving above them. Zethkar reached the ceiling and began moving across it like a mechanical spider. Marcus watched in amazement as the warrior navigated through a maze of organic pipes and cables, carrying the remaining explosives. Zethkar, the structure is not stable up there, Dr. Kim warned. The organic components cannot support your weight for long. I know, Zethkar replied calmly. That is why I need to move quickly. He reached the position above the east side of the weapon core and began lowering himself down on cables. The hive defenders below finally noticed him and started shooting upward. Cover him! Marcus shouted. The human team concentrated their fire on the creatures threatening Zethkar. The warrior worked frantically to attach the charges while hanging, upside down from the ceiling. A structural support beam cracked under his weight. Then another. "Zethkar, get out of there," Marcus yelled. "Charges are armed," Zethkar reported. 30 seconds to detonation. But as he tried to climb back up, the organic ceiling finally gave way. Zethkar fell 20 feet to the chamber floor, his wheelchair smashing against the stone. Marcus ran toward him, but the distance was too great. Hive creatures moved between them, blocking the path. "Go!" Zethkar shouted from where he lay. The charges will detonate in 20 seconds. Not without you. Marcus fought his way through the remaining Hive defenders, but there were too many of them. He watched helplessly as Zethkar tried to crawl toward a piece of his broken wheelchair that still had weapons attached. 10 seconds, Dr. Kim called out. Marcus made a desperate decision. He activated his personal shield generator and threw it toward Zethkar. The energy barrier would protect the warrior from the blast, but it would also trap him in the chamber. "Marcus, no!" Zethkar protested. "Someone has to tell your people what you accomplished here," Marcus said. The charges detonated. The explosion was massive, destroying the weapon core and sending shockwaves through the entire complex. The ceiling collapsed, and organic matter rained down like acid snow. When the dust cleared, Marcus found himself trapped under debris. His team was scattered around the chamber, all of them injured but alive. The weapon core was completely destroyed. "Zethkar," Marcus called out. "Here," came a weak voice from behind a pile of rubble. Marcus dug frantically until he found the Thrakari warrior. Zethkar was battered and his wheelchair was completely destroyed, but he was alive inside the shield barrier. "That was incredibly stupid," Zethkar said with what might have been a smile. "Yeah, well, I learned from the best," Marcus replied. "Private, Rodriguez managed to get their communications working." "Colonel, this is Rodriguez. Mission accomplished. The weapon is destroyed." "Outstanding work, people. Can you extract?" Marcus looked around the collapsed chamber. "That might be a problem." 6 months after the destruction of the Hive superweapon, the war on Zerion Prime was finally over. The Coalition forces had pushed the remaining Hive swarms off-world, and for the first time in years, there was peace in the system. Marcus stood in the newly built Coalition headquarters, watching through a large window as construction crews worked to rebuild the cities. His left arm was still in a healing brace from injuries sustained during the rescue operation, but he was alive and mostly healthy. "Sergeant Chen, report to Conference Room Alpha," came an announcement over the building's comm system. Marcus made his way through the halls, passing officers from all the Coalition species. Many of them nodded respectfully as he walked by. Word of the underground mission had spread throughout the military, and Marcus had become something of a celebrity among the human forces. Conference Room Alpha was packed with high-ranking officers from every species in the Coalition. At the front of the room sat Fleet Admiral Harrison, the supreme commander of all Coalition forces. Next to him was Zethkar. The Thrakari warrior looked different than he had 6 months ago. He was still in a wheelchair, a new one built by human and Thrakari engineers working together. But his posture was confident, his eyes were bright, and he wore a uniform that Marcus had never seen before. "Sergeant Chen," Admiral Harrison stood as Marcus entered. "Please take a seat." Marcus sat down, feeling nervous. He had no idea why he had been called to such a high-level meeting. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings," the Admiral began. 6 months ago, a small team led by Sergeant Chen accomplished what many thought was impossible. They destroyed a weapon that could have ended this war in the enemy's favor. Polite applause filled the room. Marcus noticed that even the Thrakari officers were clapping, though some looked uncomfortable doing so. But more importantly, the Admiral continued, their mission has changed how we think about military service, about disability, and about what it means to be strong. The Admiral gestured toward Zethkar. War Leader Zethkar has been appointed as the Coalition's first Director of Adaptive Warfare. His job will be to develop new tactics and technologies for soldiers who have been injured in combat. Marcus was stunned. War Leader was the highest rank in the Thrakari military, higher even than General. and the title Director of Adaptive Warfare was completely new. Zethkar rolled forward in his wheelchair. "Sergeant Chen," he said formally, "will you do me the honor of serving as my deputy director?" The room was completely silent. Marcus looked around at all the alien faces staring at him, waiting for his response. "Sir," Marcus said carefully, "I am not qualified for such a position. I am just a combat medic." "You are the human who refused to abandon a warrior when everyone else gave up on him," Zethkar replied. "You are the soldier who proved that strength comes in many forms. There is no one more qualified." Admiral Harrison smiled. "The appointment comes with a promotion to lieutenant colonel, by the way." Marcus felt overwhelmed. I accept the position, sir." The room erupted in applause. Officers from different species came forward to congratulate him. Even some of the Thrakari generals who had opposed Zethkar's rescue months ago offered their respect. After the ceremony, Marcus and Zethkar found themselves alone in the new office that had been assigned to the Adaptive Warfare Department. The room was large enough to accommodate beings of different sizes, with adjustable furniture and multiple types of computer interfaces. "So what exactly will we be doing in this job?" Marcus asked. Zethkar activated a holographic display showing military statistics from across the coalition forces. "Currently, when soldiers are severely injured, they are discharged from service and sent home. We lose their experience, their knowledge, and their skills." The display showed thousands of discharged soldiers from the recent war, but what if we could find new ways for them to serve? Zethkar continued. What if injury did not mean the end of a military career, but the beginning of a different kind of service? Marcus studied the numbers. "That is a lot of people we could help." "It is more than just helping them," Zethkar explained. "It is about changing how entire civilizations think about strength and weakness." Over the following weeks, Marcus and Zethkar began developing their new programs. They created training, courses for injured soldiers, teaching them how to use adaptive technologies. They worked with engineers from multiple species to design better mobility aids, communication devices, and specialized equipment. The response was immediate and surprising. Soldiers who had been ready to give up on life suddenly had new purpose. Veterans who had been discharged years ago applied to return to service in adaptive roles. But not everyone was happy with the changes. "This is not the Thrakari way," General Kravex complained during a heated meeting. "We are warriors, not caretakers for the weak." "With respect, General," Zethkar replied. "I killed more enemies in that underground mission than any warrior in your last 3 battles." "Was that weak?" The general had no answer for that. The real test came when they received their first major assignment. A group of Hive survivors had taken control of a space station in the outer system. The station's design made it impossible for normal troops to assault. Too many narrow passages, too many vertical access points. "Send the adaptive warfare team," Admiral Harrison ordered. Marcus assembled a squad of soldiers who had been injured in previous battles. There was Lieutenant Park, the explosives expert who had lost her legs to a mine. Sergeant Kim, a sniper who was now blind but had developed incredible hearing abilities. Corporal Santos, who had lost both arms but could control drones with neural implants. And leading them was Zethkar, the warrior who had started it all. The mission was a complete success. The adaptive team moved through the station like ghosts, using abilities and perspectives that normal soldiers could never match. They cleared the Hive survivors with minimal casualties and secured the station. When news of the victory reached the coalition worlds, something unprecedented happened. Young Thrakari warriors began volunteering for the adaptive warfare program, not because they were injured, but because they wanted to learn new ways to fight. Other species followed suit. The Lumina developed new energy-based mobility systems. The Corvin created advanced prosthetics. The Vex designed communication interfaces for soldiers who could not speak. "We have started something bigger than we realized," Zethkar told Marcus one evening as they reviewed reports from across the coalition. "Good," Marcus replied. "The universe needs more people who understand that everyone has value." A year after, The destruction of the Hive superweapon, Marcus attended a graduation ceremony at the new Coalition Academy for Adaptive Warfare. Hundreds of soldiers from dozens of species were receiving their certifications in specialized combat techniques. The keynote speaker was Zethkar, now famous throughout the galaxy as the warrior who had redefined what it meant to be strong. When I was first injured, Zethkar told the assembled graduates, I believed my life was over. In my culture, a warrior who could not walk was considered dead. I begged for death because I could not imagine any other way to exist. He paused, looking out at the diverse crowd of injured soldiers who had found new purpose. But a human soldier taught me something my own people never could. He taught me that true strength is not about never falling down. True strength is about getting back up, finding a new way to stand, and helping others do the same. Marcus watched from the audience as Zethkar continued his speech. The Thrakari warriors' words were being broadcast live to every coalition world, changing minds and challenging assumptions across the galaxy. Today you graduate not as broken soldiers but as pioneers of a new kind of warfare. You will show the universe that disability is not the end of ability. It is the beginning of adaptation. After the ceremony, Marcus and Zethkar walked through the academy grounds. Students from different species worked together on training, exercises, using technologies that had never existed before the war. My people have officially changed their military regulations, Zethkar said. Injured warriors are no longer abandoned. They are retrained for new roles. That is a big change for the Thrakari, Marcus observed. It is a necessary change, and it is spreading to other cultures as well. The Corvin have established rehabilitation centers. The Lumina are studying how mental trauma affects combat effectiveness. Even the traditionally rigid Vex are experimenting with adaptive technologies. They stopped at a memorial wall that listed all the soldiers who had died in the war against the Hive. Both of their names appeared on a special section dedicated to warriors who redefined honor. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had left me on that battlefield? Zethkar asked. Marcus considered the question. Probably nothing good. You would have died, the Hive weapon would have destroyed our fleet, and millions of people across the galaxy would still think that injured soldiers are worthless. And now? Now we have proof that everyone deserves a second chance, and that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected places. A group of young cadets approached them, led by a human student in a floating mobility chair and a Thrakari cadet using advanced prosthetic legs. Excuse me, sirs, the human student said nervously. Could we ask you some questions about the underground mission?